And the first questions come on YouTube from Apoova Kumar. And he say, hi, could you give me a comparison between Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch? Kind of the cost of living, the job opportunity, safety, environment. I guess this should be the context. Thanks in advance. All right. Cool. Do you want to get started on the cost of living, Laura?
Yeah, sure. So to cover your first criteria, Apoova, so the cost of living, I would sort of rank that in a way that, well, probably the best city for the lowest price of cost of living would be Christchurch. Then second, I would say Auckland. And then finally, I would say Wellington. So starting off with Christchurch, Christchurch is the largest city in the South Island, and it pretty much is like the biggest hub there. And in terms of cost of living, the rental prices aren't as high as Auckland and Wellington. And in terms of, other expenses like food and stuff like that, you usually have quite a lot of choice in New Zealand cities. So so you have there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of supermarkets to choose from. So and in Christchurch, like any city, the closer you stay to the centre, the higher the rental prices are. But there's a lot of suburbs and a lot of outer areas that you can live in Christchurch where the price of rentals are much lower. So second on the ranking, I would say, is Auckland, which is actually quite surprising because in recent years, Auckland has always been associated with being the most expensive city in New Zealand. But just recently, I think Wellington has taken the biscuit on that one. Auckland is still quite expensive, especially in comparison to Christchurch. Rental prices are sky high. Again, the more in the city you are, the higher the cost of rent is. But again, at least you have a lot of choice in Auckland in terms of supermarkets, cost of food, services. That usually brings the cost of services in particular down. And then finally, Wellington, I would consider now the most expensive city to live in, especially with the recent rental costs for renting a house or an apartment. It is pretty sky high at the moment. So just to recap, the cheapest city for cost of living would be Christchurch, then it would be Auckland, and then it would be Wellington being the most expensive. So now let's move on to job opportunities. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. So there is obviously plenty of job opportunities in the three cities that we mentioned. Now, the only thing I'm going to be taking in consideration for job opportunities right here is going to be the competition that you're going to encounter when looking for jobs, because we already done so many videos about job opportunities in all those three cities, so make sure to check those videos out. But in short, there is retail, hospitality, and construction jobs. There is those kind of jobs everywhere. Now, for competition-wise, in Christchurch, you're going to have very little competition to get job, and there is heaps of recruitment agencies that can place you in jobs within literally a matter of days or sometimes even hours. So Christchurch definitely the easiest cities out of those three to find job. The second one would be Wellington, just because, as Laura mentioned, the cost of living is slightly bit higher, so less people actually just go there to work, and therefore there are more jobs, and usually they pay a little bit better. And the last one will be Auckland, because there are so many people in Auckland. The job competition is extremely fierce, and for this reason, you're better off looking for a job somewhere else. So, to recap, the order for job opportunity will be Christchurch, then Wellington, and then at last will be Auckland. Now, moving on to safety, I really want to mention that every cities in New Zealand are extremely safe, right? It's New Zealand. There is nothing happening here. If you have one bad thing that happened, yes, it's all over the news, but it's one of the safest country in the world. You still should be using common sense. Don't flaunt your cash out. Don't walk into this dodgy dark alley with some strangers, and just tell someone your plans when you go on a hike or somewhere. It's just the basics, but you don't have anything too crazy to be worried about. So for safety, honestly, all three cities rank the same on our book. If you're very worried about safety, check out the video that we have on the places to avoid in New Zealand, and you'll see that we really had to stretch it to actually find more than one place to avoid in New Zealand. Anyway, your last section was for environment. So which city is the best between Christchurch, Wellington, and Auckland, environment and lifestyle-wise? Do you want to take this one, Laura?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, I'm going to talk about Christchurch. And Christchurch is known in New Zealand as the Garden City. And that's because there's like over 20 gardens around the city. And the biggest one being the Botanic Gardens at Hagley Park. This is a huge outdoor area. There's lots to explore there. So if you do like a lot of greenery in the cities that you're living in, then Christchurch is definitely a good way to go. Second of all, there's Wellington, which is a very urban, it's like compact city where, you know, you'll get your real urban lifestyle. It's packed with shops, it's packed with cafes, museums, arts, culture, the whole works. So you'll get your real city lifestyle in Wellington. And then finally in Auckland, this city is basically the best way to describe this city is that it's full of people. So Auckland is the most populated city in New Zealand. It's probably the most populated region in the whole of New Zealand. It's apparently got more people there than the South Island altogether. So yeah, the thing to know about Auckland is that everywhere you go, there will be people around. The whole of Auckland is pretty much surrounded by water, so there's a lot of island excursions you can go to and things like that. But even so, when you go and do a hike on Rangitoto Island, for example, there'll just be people everywhere. So that's pretty much Auckland in a nutshell. So if I have to rank that, I would say I would personally pick Christchurch as number 1 for the best environment, then Wellington as number 2, and then Auckland as a number 3.
All right, so that is a comparison between Christchurch, Wellington, and Auckland, between all those 3 cities. If you do have any follow-up questions of your own, put them in the comments below. We are here to help. And obviously, there is plenty of links for you guys to check out in the description of this video.